There's a lot of people out here,
Yeah, there are.
and I am not a public speaker by any stretch of the imagination. So bear with me. And I want to premise this by saying this is my last 2.5, 2 3/4 years of my life. And about 3 weeks ago, Brad asked me, hey, it'd be cool if you come up here on Sunday that we're doing the Thanksgiving service for, and why don't you say a little, say a few things. And I looked at him, I'm like, you must be out your mind. No way did I want to do this or even attempt it. But about 2 weeks ago, Doug sat up here with an orange and peeled it and peeled it and peeled it, and then he finally stomped on it. And I remember exactly that moment because I pulled my phone out and I texted Brad and I said, well, now I can't say no. I couldn't do it. I was being led. So I went back home that night, put the kids to bed, and I sat down with the laptop and I typed it all out. So I'll premise this again by saying, please do not feel sorry for me. This is a journey that God has put me on, and it's been a tough one, I won't lie. But on May 15th, 2015, January 4th, 2016, March 9th, 2016, and June 29th, 2016. These are all very important dates to me because they are dates that I have lost a loved one to cancer. I lost 2 brothers, my mom, and you all know my beautiful wife, Annie. It was very hard. My closest brother, Darrell, was diagnosed just after Easter in 2015, and he passed soon after that. And then my oldest brother, Dean, he was diagnosed just before Darwin in March, and he fought for almost a year. He had throat cancer. My mom was diagnosed in early January of 2015, and then Ann was diagnosed in August of 2015. I've always been pretty naive about as to everything that goes on around me. I kind of get stuck in my own little world. I have a great ability to process bad information and not let it worry me, but man, I couldn't. There for a while, it was hard to process, but I couldn't do it. I was saved early in my early teen years. Got baptized when I was in my early 20s. I went to church and did what I thought I was supposed to do. I led a pretty decent life. It wasn't anything extravagant, and it wasn't what you call on fire for God either. I went through a bunch of life changes towards in my late 20s, and then in my late 20s, I met my wife. I met Ann, and instantly had a connection with her. Our relationship grew quick and deep. I mean, she was, to steal the line, we were like peas in a pod, peas and carrots. And, you find that person in your life that makes you a better person. Pastor Doug talked about this last week, about how someone shows you that affection, outside of your parents and siblings, and it just draws you to them and makes you want to be with them. And that's what Ann did for me. She made me a better person. Most importantly, she made me a better Christian. My relationship with Christ started taking off when I met Ann, and I don't know. I'm sorry, I lost my place, and I'm trying to hold her together. So after Ann and I met, we got married soon, and everything was going along pretty decent. We were living here. I was attending church here, and we were growing together. We still had our ups and downs, but everything was going good. Back in January of 2014, when my mom was diagnosed with cancer, um, everything kind of started falling apart for me personally. Um, my mom was one of the biggest, inspirations in my life, and my biggest fan as well. And without her, I wouldn't be where I am today. So she was diagnosed, and Ann went into full fix-it mode. She wanted my mom to come move in with us and go down to Ann Arbor to get treatment and everything. And, if you knew Ann at all, that's what she did. She dropped everything and went to help whoever needed the help. Throughout the next couple months after my mom was diagnosed, our faith and family would be tested to extreme measures. One after another, the cancer diagnosis has started coming in. And then after my closest brother, Darrell, had passed away, it started raising a lot of questions amongst myself and my family. Now, my family's not a very strong Christian family. My mom was that rock for our whole family, so with my brother passing and my oldest brother being diagnosed, and my mom being diagnosed, my family was not wanting anything to do with God at that time, and I was starting to think and starting to feel that way too. I mean, I was getting to the point where I didn't talk to Ann about it. She was the one who stayed strong through all of this. The more I talked about it, the more she tried to get me to talk about it, the more I hated it. I hated God. I hated where our life was. I just hated life. I've talked to quite a few people, and they've all asked me, what's worse, losing a loved one quickly and not being able to say goodbye, or losing a loved one slowly and painfully? And then I don't have an answer for that. I don't think there is a good way to ever lose a loved one, But, I had to watch both my brothers, they died quickly. And then I had to watch Ann and my mom, die slowly. For a short time during the summer of 2015, good things were happening. My mom's treatments were going good. My oldest brother, was scheduled for her surgery, and everything went well with that. It was towards the end of summer when I got a phone call. I was at work, and had fell at a work event that she was at, and one of her coworkers called me to tell me that they were taking her up to a hospital in Brighton. So when I got there, her coworkers were there, and her mom and dad were there, and they were sitting in the waiting room. We got there, and we went back to see her, and they were running their tests, trying to get everything, eliminate everything that they possibly could. It was getting pretty late in the evening when the x-ray from Ann's chest came back. That was the first time anyone had mentioned anything about, Ann's past cancer that she had, and the nurse started asking Ann about her oncologist and wondered if it was possible for us to get in to see her. So the next day we made the call and, ended up down in Ann Arbor, and we got that news that her cancer had come back. I remember sitting in that room when her oncologist said that, and I went numb. I didn't know. It's a terrible cliche, but I was a deer in the headlights. I seen this problem in front of me, and I couldn't function. Um, I don't know what happened, but I got snapped back into reality when her doctor, she left for a minute, and then, her mom was there. We had, um, you know, uh, after her doctor left, we hugged her, cried, and tried to figure out what we were going to do. So by the time we left Ann Arbor, we had a plan and everything was, set up for Ann to start her chemo again. After Ann got diagnosed, her her love and faith in God just exploded. Um, if you're if you're a Christian and you see someone that just falls into their faith head over heels, it's a great thing. I hated it. it it drove me nuts that I could not have the happiness or the joy that she was having through all of this. I didn't want that. I wanted to separate myself even farther from the problem. And my anger for everything that was going on was really starting to get out of control. So anyway, we started chemo. The first round did not take. It wasn't working. It actually ended up speeding this process up, which made everything even more, for Ann, it made her go into crisis mode even more. Now, again, like if you knew Ann, you'd know she was planning everything out. She had everything lined up, ducks in a row. This is what's going to happen, to the point where she wouldn't even let Brad, sing at her funeral. So, just wasn't going to happen. But after we got done with this first round of treatment, we were hit with some more devastating news, and that was the news that Ann would have to go back on the chemo that she was on before. And, most of you were here when she was giving her stories that consisted of 3 10-hour days, getting chemo administered, and then she was on a pump 24 hours a day for the next 3 days. It really knocked her out. She was pretty much, she pretty much slept the whole time she was on this chemo, which killed her because she had to stay down in Brighton for it. And the boys and I had to be up here, and, she worried about me feeding and clothing the boys, which, let's be honest, there's room for, there's cause for concern there, all right?
Nothing wrong with pizza every day, there isn't.
Oh, man. So anyway, this chemo that she was on for 6 weeks or so, I guess, and it was starting to work. And we were thinking, awesome, this is great. We took a trip down to Disney over Christmas, and when we got back, Ann had to start her chemo again. This was the week before New Year's, so she went and did her chemo. And for whatever reason, this chemo didn't work. It gave her some really nasty side effects that just wasn't something that she could live with, the side effects. And so on the day after New Year's, we were back down at Ann Arbor to really basically talk about more options, to which there weren't any. And that was kind of the start of our 2016. A couple days after that, I had gotten a phone call. Um, my oldest brother was being rushed down to Spectrum Health in Grand Rapids for an emergency surgery. He had gotten severely dehydrated over the chemo that he was taking. And they figured it dehydrated him enough to where he wasn't getting any blood flow to his intestines, and they were figuring that his intestines were dying, so they wanted to get in there and see if there was something they could do about it. He never recovered from that surgery. They found that everything was okay inside him, but due to the lack of dehydration and just the cancer, he was never able to recover from it. So now here I sit. Both my brothers were gone. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed, just crying. Clenched fist, shaking my hand, saying, "Why?" I remember uttering the words, "You have a plan. I hate your plan. But it is a plan, and I can't control it. I didn't like it. It was another thing I had to do with my family. Plan another funeral, watch my mom bury another kid. After Dean passed away and had the funeral, my mom took a turn for the worse. I think her soul had been crushed. She was put into hospice care in her home, and that's where she had passed away, with my sister and I holding her hand. This is where God stomped on my heart. He didn't stomp on my heart. This is where my soul was crushed, I should say. This is where I didn't want anything to do with church. And throughout all of this, Ann was still staying strong for both of us. So after my mom passed away, things were going okay after that. Ann and I were doing what we wanted to do. We were able to go camping for the first time, and she loved that. She liked to camp. She liked to just spend time with the boys and I, at least the boys, I should say. After Memorial Day, after we went camping, I took Ann into Ann Arbor because she was having some really strong pains on her side, and we thought it was a kidney stone. And what we ended up finding was her tumors had been growing and started pressing on other organs. They just started kind of pushing their way out and moving wherever they wanted to go. She was in the hospital for 10 days that time. And they were doing whatever they could to try and control the pain. It was during this stint at the hospital that, we had the last talk with her oncologist that we would have, and it was the day that we decided that, or we were told that there was nothing else they could do. The pain management was getting to be out of their scope, their realm of expertise, and that we needed to talk about hospice. The social worker that we talked to at Ann Arbor, he was trying to be as positive as he could about this, but Ann knew, as did the rest of us. Ann was later moved to a hospice facility. They could control the pain for a little bit, but they couldn't control it enough. Throughout all of this, again, I'm hating everything that's going on. I can't focus. I can't think positive anymore. They later changed her pain medication, and this new medication was some pretty wicked stuff. About an hour after giving this medication to her, once they started giving this medication to her, she would become unconscious. And there's a sense of, I don't even know what the right word is, but I felt okay knowing that she was happy. She was right, she was good with God. She was okay with his plan. I sat there next to her, hating everything that she was good with. I couldn't figure out how he would take Ann off this earth with all the work that she was doing for him and for other people. My anger kept growing, and it started eating me alive. I hid it from a lot of people. Ann stopped breathing at 9:14 p.m. All of her family there. After a minute, I felt a little relief kind of sweep over me because I knew that she was okay. She wasn't hurting anymore. She wasn't in any pain. She didn't have to worry about why, how, what was going to happen. The next couple of weeks were a whirlwind of activities around here. A lot of great people coming in and helping me out, to which I could never say thank you enough. We finished up the summer. Boys and I had as good a summer as we could have. We went camping and did a lot of stuff that they wanted to do. After Ann's funeral, I did bury my feelings, and that helped me. I know it didn't help a lot of other people, but it helped me figure out what I needed to do, what I was trying to do, who I was going to be, you know, try and be a dad to these boys and try and explain to them, you know, why things are the way they were. When school started, Eli started playing tackle football. Lucas and Logan were into soccer. Everything was going well, pretty good. I thought I was getting over my anger about everything that was going on. When in reality, I didn't deal with it, so I wasn't over it, but I didn't feel it either. Once Eli started playing football, it worked out for me because that gave me the excuse of taking Eli to football games instead of coming to church. I didn't want to be here. I didn't want, I'll take this the wrong way, but I didn't want to be around people. I didn't want to be around, really, I didn't want to be around people who could encourage me and lift me up because I didn't want to be lifted up. I wanted to stay angry and you know, stay stuck in my own little world. I remember sitting on my bed again and just weeping over everything that had been going on in my life. And then it was like a knock on the door. Quit it. Just stop. He hit me hard that night. He hit me hard enough to where I don't even remember. I started seeing things that God had put in my life. I started looking up and seeing the people that He placed strategically in my life throughout all of this. I had many people giving me phone calls and text messages, and it seemed like just at that point where I really wanted to get angry again and be mad, I'd get a text from somebody, or I'd run into somebody at the store or something. I had given up on God throughout the last 2.5 years of my life. Although He never gave up on me. If it wasn't for His grace and love and His plan, I would have never met or married Annie. I would have never had the 3 boys that I have a great church family, and live in one of the greatest communities I could possibly ask for. So many things that I've taken for granted, and yet He has put them all in place for me to get me through this, to be my rock when I can't. I still have a hard time seeing the big picture, especially when I look at my boys. As probably what breaks my heart the most. I have my good and I have my bad moments. And I know whenever you guys ask me, how you doing? I'm going to say I'm doing just fine. That's not going to change. Because I am doing just fine. I'm doing the best that I can do with God's help. God carried me through all of this. And when I'm ready, he'll put me down and I'll be able to walk next to him. I never got a chance to say to you guys how grateful and thankful I am for every one of you. Through this whole ordeal, you guys have really been there for me and my family. And that I can't thank you enough for. This community, this town, Annie's Army, it's been huge for us. So, I appreciate it. Thank you.